I definitely think that it's important to not go out and live extravagantly while you're in school. A lot of times that can be difficult because you don't realize, you're borrowing all this money, but you don't really see, you're not having to pay anything back. So at the current moment, so it can be difficult to make that connection. But when you're in school, just realizing that, putting yourself on a budget, getting connected with the financial aid department to come up with what you should be spending each month that's a reasonable amount to cover your expenses, and trying to stick to that as best you can is very important.
As far as budgeting while you're a student, I think that it's important to make good decisions, but also spend the money that you need to spend so that you can do well in school. And that may mean, spending money to go on a trip during your spring break, to visit some practices so that you can make some relationships, but it also may include a nice dinner out with your spouse. But it just takes time it takes money, it takes a certain amount of money to get through optometry school, and you don't want to obsess. I think that it's important not to obsess on nickel and diming yourself to death while you're in optometry school, because there are expenses that occur. You've got to pay tuition and books, but you also have to pay for your living expenses. And you need to be able to do well in school, and that's just going to take some money.
I'd say budget now. If you're still in your undergraduate college, budget. If you're a first-year student at SCO, if you're a third-year student, if you're just getting graduation, you're going to be entering the workforce, start to budget. If you are budgeting currently, but maybe you're losing track, maybe you don't do it well, practice. I assure you that it's going to be easier to budget when you're working with your rent or your mortgage, your utilities, your groceries, your entertainment expenses, as opposed to when you have all those same obligations, and then you add into that your practice lease, your payroll, your marketing budget. Maybe you want to get a new piece of equipment for your practice. You're overseeing your optical and bringing in a new frame line. When you've got to budget all of those, that's a difficult time to start trying to do it for the first time. So it's important that whatever level you find yourself in at the moment, that you start to make that a habit. It can be kind of daunting at first. Maybe you've tried budgeting and it hasn't been successful for you. Maybe you found it to be a little bit too restrictive. I think the important thing there is to rely on the resources that are available. One of the great resources that I had while in school was the financial aid office. These were professionals that's what they did for their job. And what was also unique about it was they were intimately familiar with my situation because of previous experience they've had. They'd been counseling students who'd attended the same school, had left school with similar debts. We're going to have the same obligations that I was going to have. So they were able to sit me down and tell me, here's where, with this budget that you're working on, where your debt's going to end up. This is what you're going to have to pay back. This is what you might have to make to be able to meet those obligations. So they're a fantastic resource to rely on. There's also online resources with regards to budgeting. There are software programs that can be used to get you familiar with that process.